So usually reptile rooms are a monthly thing, but I haven't done one since December, and I thought I could show everyone around everything in case they haven't seen it. People are also occasionally curious as to like where all of my enclosures are, because you usually only see one enclosure at a time. So I thought I could show you basically where everything is, where I edit and everything. So if you don't care about that, then leave the video and come back next month, I guess. So I don't actually have any new animals, but I do have some changes and updates, so we can go ahead and get started. I'll start out by showing you where all of my enclosures actually are. So right here is one of the two studio lights. I really like using the light boxes because it is a nice even naturalist sort of look, as if you're out on like a cloudy day, and that's what I usually use to light all of my videos, and they come in really handy. They're not too expensive either. To the left of this is my 40-gallon toad enclosure, but we'll move on to that later. And I just stepped in animal pee. So here's where I actually edit the videos. I pulled up a Premiere Pro file to make it look like I was working and not on YouTube. A lot of people ask me what I use to edit. I'm using Premiere Pro CC right now with the rest of the Creative Cloud. I also tend to incorporate Photoshop, After Effects, and Adobe SpeedGrade when making the videos. And there are my lovely Adventure Time figurines. To the right of that is another light. And then it's my bed because I need to sleep somewhere. The front of the bed usually works as a good backdrop. I was just shooting some different things on this blue backdrop with some different animals, and my Adventure Time blanket is an important note. And then directly behind that is where I have the animals. Firstly, I have some things that I moved, and we can start up here. Did you see how smoothly that went? So this is Shadow, the black rat snake. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you might know that he is a wild-caught rat snake that I removed from a construction site, which I've talked about before. But he was really rambunctious when I first got him. He really didn't strike, but he loved to musk everywhere. He would false strike, or pretend strike, I don't know what to call it. He would basically smash his face into your hand, but he wouldn't actually open his mouth, just to try and kind of scare you. But clearly he's doing way better than how he was before. It usually took me a good few minutes to actually get him out of the enclosure, and he would just constantly be flying around everywhere like the noodle that he is. But he's been really chill now. He's been eating from the start. I wasn't actually going to keep him if I couldn't get him eating really quickly, but he ate immediately. He's on adult frozen mice right now, which is pretty nice that he's eating frozen, seeing as he was eating live out in the wild. I'm not sure if you've seen the thing that he's actually in. It's a bit difficult to use. It's hard to get him out. It's easy to stress him out in there, so it's not the best setup, but he does get a bit more space. And that is an old bookshelf with some acrylic doors on the front, and then he just has a light coming through the side and everything else that he needs. He wasn't a big fan of the move at first. His snoot's got a little bruise on it from him trying to stick his nose through that acrylic, but he's used to it now. He stopped doing that. So now you can boop that snoot without worrying about actually hurting him. Move down one enclosure. I have a 10-gallon here. You might be able to guess what this is because the setup is the exact same as before. This is the little normal Kenyan Sand Boa. It is a female. I don't know her age because the place I got her from apparently rescued her from somewhere else. But I've already had her for like 4 months, I think. And you can actually see she's already been growing and getting fatter. Last time I weighed her, she was about 58 grams. That was just about a week ago. And I really couldn't find the perfect size mouse for her to eat. She is on frozen thawed. So I'm feeding her fuzzies, which are actually pretty huge, and you can really see the big lump in her stomach when she's got that fuzzy in her. If you hear a lot of noise in this shot, it's because Franklin is being very impatient and not waiting for his turn. In this enclosure right here is arguably the cutest of the animals, and that is the juvenile box turtle. While I looked for her, I can tell you that I downgraded her from a 20-gallon to a 10-gallon. One, because I needed the space for another 20-gallon, which I'll talk about in just a minute, but 10 gallons is just enough for her right now. The enclosure still has everything she needs, and she really doesn't move around too often. I also take her out daily, so she gets more time to move around. It's also easier to clean and find her in this small enclosure. When I actually have the top on her enclosure, she's always getting that UVB about 12 hours a day, and I do have a heating rig set up connected to a thermostat to keep those temperatures exact. But this is the juvenile box turtle, and overall she's been doing really well. There is a quick thing that I'll go ahead and show you on her belly. There's a little patch of something, kind of like a discolored shell, and it really doesn't look like shell rot to me, and even if it was, it really doesn't make any sense because I keep her humidity extremely in check. The soil or the substrate is never actually damp. I do mist it a couple times a week, but it is never wet to where it could actually give her anything like shell rot. And I have experience with shell rot because of my other turtle who I did not give shell rot to. So let me know what you think that is. Right now I'm just treating it as if it were shell rot because it definitely won't hurt to do that, but I'll be pretty surprised if it is. But anyway, she's really come out of her shell. She's been a lot more comfortable. She, as you can see, just kind of hangs out now. It's possible you recognize the background in here. That is the first background I ever tried to foam, so it's kind of a terrible job. I've still only done 3. But this is definitely the worst of those 3. But it works for her. It gives her some extra protection, extra little places to hide in, and it works out pretty well. Really the last thing to say about her is she is an adorable eater, and it is her feeding time, so I can't help myself. I'm going to give you 1 minute of just completely uninterrupted little baby box turtle eating. So next up right here is something that's not actually new. These are the same toads that I've had as before. However, I moved some of them to what I'm hoping can be their breeding enclosure. Usually the toads will mate, I think it's like a couple weeks right at the start of spring, so they're about a month early. But I don't know, maybe we can get some tadpoles, or toadpoles. So I've got, I think it's 2 males and then 3 females. They're all American toads. I have a 6-toad who has the 40-gallon to itself, which you saw that 40 on at the start, but we'll get to that. But 2 of the toads are already mating, and they tend to mate for a long time. To be exact, it's been 13 and a half hours. I started timing them when they started this morning, and they're still working on it, so hopefully they're working hard to get us some toadpoles. I should probably add, you might be wondering what those water bottles are, and I didn't actually have enough gravel to keep it up high enough, so I put those water bottles beneath the gravel to keep it up, but they ended up moving around so much in the enclosure that the water bottles floated to the top, so I need to fix that. I just don't want to interrupt the baby makers right now. Next up, right below the toads, is Franklin, and he's right there. Franklin spends a lot of his day out of his pool because he really loves just exploring the room, finding different little spots to sit and fall asleep. The room is basically turtle-proofed, but I do keep him in the pond whenever I'm not here or when it's time for him to go to sleep. So as you can see, Franklin is really outgoing now. If you don't know, I've had him for a few months now, I think, and he's about 10 years old, and I am his second owner. So his previous owners didn't really care about him too much, but they did care for him. His primary diet was raw chicken and Cheerios. He also didn't have access to any heating or UVB, and he didn't even actually have really much of a place to bask or sit out of the water. Alright, it's okay. So other than the fact that I'm a bit surprised that he is still alive, he has been doing really well. He did have shell rot, and he has some MBD going on. As you can see, his shell is pretty kind of morphed and just doesn't look right there. That's because he didn't get his UVB, and he didn't get the correct vitamins in his food. The shell rot, all but this one little spot right here, is all fixed. I successfully fixed that. I just need to do that last little bit. And he has a couple stuck scoots from his most recent shed, so I need to help him out with that probably. But other than that, he's doing really well. He's really healthy. I just have him on a diet of turtle pellets right now. And yeah, like I said, he is really outgoing. He's really not nervous around you anymore. Really, let's see. Yeah, he even lets me touch him on the head. He really has no problems. He's completely used to everyone in the house. And he's not afraid to come up to you and just climb into your lap. So it's the next day now. Right here is Sunny around my neck, and Gobi. We can do these two at once. Firstly, Gobi, he is a reverso-kidi corn snake. I don't actually know if he's male or female. I'm pretty sure he's male based on his tail. He's really one of the few animals that never had any problems eating or anything. And I've only had him for, I guess, like a year and a half, maybe. I can't actually remember. I got him from some owners that didn't want him anymore, and they were going to release him. So I took him. He was really underweight. He hadn't eaten in months. Well, he hadn't been fed in months. He probably would have eaten. But he's gained his weight now. He's still growing. He's doing good. So like I sort of mentioned before, every month I've been weighing and measuring the animals, and Sunny has now passed Gobi on length and weight. Well, he's always been heavier than him, but Sunny is now my largest animal, whether you're going by weight or length, which is a bit surprising because he is off feed right now. If your ball python's off feed, they're completely fine. It's ball python breeding season right now, and they're just picky eaters anyway, so it's nothing to worry about. But Sunny hasn't eaten in a couple weeks. He took like one, but I think there's been 3 or 4 weeks that he hadn't eaten. What I do is try and feed Sunny a mouse. If he doesn't eat it, I give it to Gobi, and then if he does eat it, I thaw out another one for Gobi to avoid having to waste any. But originally he could fit in the palm of my hand, which was over 3 years ago, so he's definitely gotten a bit chubbier and a bit larger. So I usually like taking the animals out to actually show you, but Goldie's asleep right now and I hate waking up the animals, so I'll just show you him. But he's in his same enclosure. Really nothing's changed with him. He was like close to getting overweight, but he's actually eating a bit less right now. He has been for the past couple months, maybe because it's been the cooler season, so he might start eating up more again. But he's on a full diet of mealworms with his calcium and supplements. And here's just another reminder. I actually made a video on this, but remember to always check your heat pads as often as possible, because unlike a light, you don't know when it is and isn't working unless you actually feel it. I felt Goldie's a couple days ago, and it was at night, and I was confused. It wasn't making any heat, so I thought maybe it was broken. But then it turns out I accidentally plugged it into the timer instead of the always on thingy on the plug when I was moving some plugs around. So I had to fix that. And just remember to check all your heat pads as often as possible. But that's Goldie. Not the most interesting since he does sleep all day, but he is still really cool. He has great colors and patterns. He is a Trimper albino patternless orange giant leopard gecko. This enclosure belongs to Olive, the blue-tongued skink. She is in a 40-gallon breeders with Eco-Earth as her main substrate. She's got a couple plants in the back that aren't doing too well. That shows you how bad I am at caring for plants, since snake plants should be pretty easy. Right now, pothos is the only thing I can successfully keep alive. I've also got some additional fake plants just in the back for some extra cover. And she usually sits under her water bowl, which I have propped up. It kind of works as her cool side hide, because her main hide does have a heat pad. It is regulated with the thermostat, but she does prefer to cool off under her bowl a lot. On top you can see there is a UVB, but it's actually a good few years old. It's probably like 10 years old actually, so it's not going to be lighting off any beneficial rays. But that's not a problem because although blue tongues are diurnal, they do not require UVB. I'm assuming that's because they're pretty much out of the sunlight all day. But it's definitely a good idea to give them UVB, and I'll probably replace that with a new one so that it's actually working. But she's been just fine. I've had her since 2014. She's grown a ton and she keeps growing, and she's definitely one of my best eaters. I don't think she's ever refused a meal. But since 5 of the 6 toads are in the breeding thing, there's only one toad in here, and it's really been love and life because he is spoiled with this large enclosure. I have a photo of him just like completely spread out in the water, because usually he'd have to share that bowl with a few others. So I guess when I bring the other toads back, I'll make sure to give them some extra water bowl space. I recently tried siliconing a little like river sort of thingy with a working pump, and it worked really well at first. It was holding water and everything. It wasn't silicone, it was great stuff. But then all of a sudden it started leaking, I think, to the bottom. So that's kind of another failed foaming project. I still need to work on figuring how to actually do that. So if you have any idea on why it was leaking, I was thinking maybe the surface wasn't clean enough, like maybe there was some dirt so the foam wasn't stuck all the way, because it held water for about a week and then it started leaking like everywhere. But I tried. I'll need to keep working on my foaming skills. But that'll be it for this reptile room update video. I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.